You can feel it, right? That moment when a team that's been pushing all in for years suddenly has to look in the mirror and make hard choices, not because they want to, but because they have to. And here's the thing. Two different situations popped up that, at first glance, don't seem connected. But trust me, they absolutely are. One is about letting go. The other? It might be about pulling the trigger on something nobody expected. This isn't just off-season chatter. This is about the direction of the franchise. It's about money, identity, loyalty, and what this team is going to look like when we line up next season trying to get back to the Super Bowl. Something big is shifting in Santa Clara, and whether we like it or not, some familiar faces might not be part of what comes next. If you're a real faithful who believes we're getting back to the Super Bowl next year, do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. 49ers Nation Report is still growing, and I only want real Niner fans riding with us. Now let's talk about what's really going on here. We all knew this day was coming. You can't go all in year after year, stack stars, hand out big contracts, and not eventually feel the squeeze. And now, the squeeze is real. After that brutal injury-heavy season in 2025, where it felt like every week somebody new was going down, this team still fought its way to a 12-5 record. 12-5. That's resilience. That's culture. That's what this locker room is built on. We lost Deebo Samuel in that trade. That changed the identity of the offense overnight. But somehow we adjusted. Christian McCaffrey came back and won AP Comeback Player of the Year. That wildcard win over the defending champion Philadelphia Eagles? Gritty. 23-19. That was heart. And then, Seattle happened. 41-6 in the divisional round. 41-6. That game exposed everything. Depth issues, trench problems, secondary weaknesses, and the reality that this roster can't just run it back and expect a different result. And now, heading into 2026, the financial reality hits like a brick wall. Brock Purdy's $265 million extension changes everything. And it should. He earned it. But when you pay your quarterback like that, the math gets ruthless. Add in the big deals for Nick Bosa and Fred Warner, and suddenly the cap isn't flexible anymore. It's surgical. That's why three names are staring us in the face right now. First, Brandon Ayuk. Yeah, the elephant in the room. On the field, when healthy, he's still a top-tier receiver. Smooth route runner. Explosive. Can win outside. But let's be real. The contract tension never truly went away. The communication breakdown with the front office left scars. You could feel it all season. And in Kyle Shanahan's system, trust matters, timing matters, chemistry matters. If there's friction in that room, it bleeds into everything. Financially, letting Ayuk walk, especially with a post-June 1st move, gives breathing room. Even with dead cap, it resets the receiver hierarchy. It gives us flexibility to draft a vertical field stretcher or sign a mid-tier speed guy who can stretch defenses without breaking the bank. Emotionally, it would hurt. But strategically, it might be necessary. Then there's Jawan Jennings. Man. Third and Jawan. That wasn't just a nickname. That was a strategy. 9 touchdowns last season. Blocking like a tight end. Tough catches in traffic. Absolute dog. The kind of player you win with. But here's the cold truth. He's 28. Coming off a career year. His market value is up. He's going to command high-end WR3 or low-tier WR2 money on a multi-year deal. And we simply can't pay mid-tier starter money to a role-specific receiver when Purdy, Bosa, and Warner are eating premium cap space, and more extensions are coming. It's not about talent. It's about allocation. Shanahan has historically manufactured production from mid-round receivers. We've seen it. Developing a younger, cheaper version of that role fits the new cap structure better than paying sentimental tax. Letting Jennings walk would be painful, but it would also be disciplined roster management. And then, Yetur Gross-Matos. He did what we asked him to do. Rotational snaps, some interior flexibility, solid depth piece. But projected near $9 million annually on the open market? That's not rotational money anymore. That's impact rusher money. And after that Seattle loss, we all saw it. We don't need solid. We need juice opposite Nick Bosa. We need a true speed rusher. We need interior disruption. Investing premium rotational money limits our ability to chase a difference maker. And with younger defensive linemen developing internally, reallocating that cash makes more sense long-term. None of these guys are liabilities, but they don't align with the next phase. If Ayuk, Jennings, and Gross Matos all walk, it's not regression. It's recalibration. It's trimming financial weight to keep the championship frame intact. We're not closing the Super Bowl window. We're reshaping it around Brock Purdy, and that's where things get even more interesting. Because while we're talking about letting players leave due to cap reality, there's another conversation quietly building behind the scenes. One that involves a Pro Bowl name and a potential trade that could completely change how we view this roster. And trust me, if this actually happens, it's going to divide this fan base. Let's talk about that next. Now this is where things get complicated. Because while we're sitting here talking about letting veterans walk to manage the cap, there's another conversation brewing that nobody saw coming a few months ago, and it involves a Pro Bowl player. We all assumed after this season that some things were stable, that the quarterback room, at least behind Brock Purdy, was locked in, that continuity mattered, that development mattered. But according to Matt Barrows from The Athletic, the stars might be aligning for the 49ers to trade Mac Jones. Yeah, that Mac Jones. And before you react, let's break this down calmly. Earlier in the offseason, all the talk was that San Francisco had no interest in moving him. Zero. He went 5-3 in games he led this season. 5-3. That's not nothing. He spent a full year mastering Kyle Shanahan's system. That matters. In this offense, understanding the details is everything. The footwork, the timing, the verbiage. But here's where it gets interesting. Barrows said circumstances could be creating an offer that's hard to refuse. And when insiders start using language like that, you pay attention. There are teams out there that run similar offensive concepts, and that's not coincidence. Look at the Arizona Cardinals. They just hired Mike LaFleur, who spent 4 seasons coaching under Shanahan in San Francisco. He knows this system inside and out. Look at the Miami Dolphins. Their offensive coordinator Bobby Slowick spent 6 seasons under Shanahan. That tree runs deep. And then there's the Minnesota Vikings. Kevin O'Connell has built an offense heavily inspired by Shanahan principles. Wide zone concepts, play-action heavy, timing-based throws. McJones just spent a year immersed in that exact framework. For a team looking for a quarterback who can step in and operate that system without a steep learning curve, that's valuable. Now, here's the real question for us as Niner fans. Is he more valuable as insurance or as trade capital? Because let's be honest, when you commit $265 million to Brock Purdy, you're building around him. Period. He's the guy. That's not up for debate. So if another team comes in with a serious offer, something that helps replenish draft capital, maybe even address one of the weaknesses we just talked about, receiver depth, secondary help, defensive line juice, do you listen? John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan know nothing is guaranteed year to year. We saw that with injuries in 2025. We saw that with how fast a playoff run can end. If they believe they can flip a backup quarterback into meaningful assets that help protect Purdy and extend this championship window, that's not crazy. That's calculated, but it's risky. Because depth at quarterback is not something you play around with in this league. We've lived that nightmare before. So this isn't just about trading a player, it's about philosophy. Are we doubling down on cap discipline and asset accumulation, or are we prioritizing stability in the quarterback room no matter what? And when you put this together with potentially letting Ayuk, Jennings, and Gross Matos walk, you start to see the bigger picture. This offseason isn't about panic. It's about restructuring the foundation. Now let's zoom out and talk about what all of this really means for the San Francisco 49ers moving forward. When you step back and connect these two situations, it paints a very clear picture of where this team is right now. Letting Brandon Ayuk walk, possibly losing Jawan Jennings, moving on from Yetur Gross-Matos, and at the same time being open, even slightly, to trading Mac Jones if the offer is right. That's not random. That's intentional recalibration. This front office knows the window isn't closed, but it also knows the window only stays open if you manage it the right way. You can't keep stacking mid-tier contracts on emotional favorites just because they helped you get here. And you can't ignore trade value when it presents itself. Everything now revolves around Brock Purdy. His $265 million extension isn't just a paycheck. It's a declaration. The offense will be built around his strengths. Timing, anticipation, quick decisions, play-action rhythm. That means speed at receiver, separation, younger legs, cap flexibility. On defense, it means finally addressing what that Seattle loss screamed at us: interior pressure, secondary help, and pass rush juice opposite Nick Bosa. If Ayuk and Jennings leave, that's financial elasticity. If Gross Matos leaves, that's redirected pass rush investment. If Mac Jones gets traded for real value, that's draft capital or pieces that can support Purdy immediately. When you add it all together, this isn't regression. It's restructuring with discipline. Is it uncomfortable? Absolutely. There are emotional attachments here. Jennings especially feels like one of those guys you hate to lose. Ayuk, despite the tension, is insanely talented, and quarterback depth always makes you sleep better at night. But sustaining contention in today's NFL isn't about comfort. It's about timing your resets without collapsing the foundation. Right now, the San Francisco 49ers aren't tearing it down. They're trimming financial weight so the championship frame doesn't crack under the cap. And as a fan who's watched this team fight through injuries, bounce back to 12-5, beat the defending champs in the wild card, and then get humbled in the divisional round, I'd rather see smart, proactive moves now than desperate ones later. This offseason feels decisive. Not negative, not desperate, decisive. And if you're riding with this team the way I am, if you believe Purdy is the guy, if you believe this front office knows how to pivot without panicking, and if you truly think we're getting back to the Super Bowl next year, then you already understand what's happening here. Go ahead and like the video. Drop a comment and tell me which move would hit you the hardest: Ayuk, Jennings, Gross Matos, or trading Mac. And subscribe to 49ers Nation Report. But only if you're a real one. Only if you believe this team is still built for another Super Bowl run. Because this next chapter, it's going to define the era